much for joining us for CBS 8's AAPI special, Asian American Pacific Islander, San Diegan. I'm Marcella Lee. Every May, we celebrate Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. San Diego County has a large AAPI community with more than 425,000 people, the 7th largest in the country. While we are united under the AAPI umbrella, we represent many different ethnicities from around the world, and each one is woven into the cultural fabric of San Diego. For the next hour, we'll be showcasing several of our AAPI communities so we can learn more about each other, our friends, neighbors, business owners, and colleagues. Kelly Hessedal starts us off with a look at why Korean culture is alive and well here and taking center stage.
We're not just throwing down on the dance floor, we're throwing down in life. That's how we approach life. That's the kind of the Korean spirit, right? And the Ajuma spirit.
Ajuma EXP, an all-female dance crew. If you're a member, you live in San Diego, you're probably Korean.
Must have fierce commitment to badassery.
And you're definitely over the age of 35.
Don't even think about responding if you're under 40.
Founder Leanne Kim.
I'm a former broadcaster, but I own a video production company.
Group members Dr. Janet Kim.
I'm a physician. I specialize in rheumatology.
And Angela Chun.
I'm an attorney. I own my own law firm.
So tell me why you started Ajuma.
The word Ajuma is intrinsically Korean. It means simply middle-aged woman. So we wanted to reclaim that word and then just redefine it as something positive. Ajuma EXP is simply a way for us to celebrate the phase of life that we're in right now as middle-aged women and be proud of that.
They spend months practicing.
And why did you want to become a member of it?
I just wanted something positive and different in my life.
It's kind of liberating in a way, to try to do something different outside of your comfort zone.
Their costumes include fanny packs, wigs.
A typical middle-aged Korean woman, she would have short permed hair.
And colorful visors.
We're playing into their stereotype and then we flip it over on its head.
Here's video of Ajuma at Zion Market.
When you flash Mama Place, what kind of reaction do you guys get?
Oh my gosh, everybody loves it. They bust out their cameras.
Here they are at Balboa Park.
I think people are shocked.
It's a blast, it takes a lot of work, oh my God, do we have the moves down? And then at the end, it doesn't matter.
We're breaking down barriers and we're shining this great spotlight on older women, on Asian American women, and Korean women.
Korean culture has exploded in popularity in recent years, from K-pop, groups like BTS and Blackpink, to K-dramas, to Netflix shows like Squid Game.
My sons, because they're young boys that have cool haircuts, everyone thinks that they're BTS and they're automatically really cool. It's finally cool to be Korean.
But it wasn't always like this.
I remember growing up in the 70s in the Midwest, people didn't know where Korea was. They asked me if I was North Korean. Oh, are you Korean? So does that mean you speak Chinese?
When I was growing up, I remember asking my mom to stop packing me kimbap because I was embarrassed. My daughter is asking me for kimbap.
I'm just really proud that Koreans are getting a little bit more notice, maybe, a little bit more appreciation because we have a lot to offer.
They say it finally feels like Korean culture is part of American culture. This video from the Korean Cultural Center of Los Angeles shows just how mainstream it is. In January, thousands of all ages and ethnicities packed Balboa Park to watch a K-pop group perform on Korea Day.
I was like, but here it is. I'm witnessing this huge 180 change of how society views people like me. And I just felt like I just kind of stood there and just embraced the moment.
A moment of pride, a moment of joy.
I'm so happy that we're living in this kind of era where being Korean is celebrated.
Kelly Hessedal, CBS 8.
So fun, so proud. Up next, how Filipino Americans are cooking up a storm and looking great doing it. I'm Ariana Cohen. I'm introducing 3 successful Filipino businesses, all started by immigrants. The Filipino-American community makes up about half of San Diego's AAPI population. CBS 8's Ariana Cohen shares the inspiring stories of some Filipino-American business owners and tells us why featuring this community is so personal to her.
I first learned about Fina's fashion boutique and alterations because my Filipino grandma loves to come here. In fact, she comes here every time she visits. Last time, she bought more than 10 dresses that look just like this. She even negotiated prices in Tagalog with the owner who immigrated here from the Philippines.
It's a hard work. It's a dedication. It's a passion.
Fina's passion for fashion is what drove her to start her own alterations and traditional Filipino clothing business.
It's a dream for me. I want really to come here in the United States because of opportunities, of course, because life in the Philippines is so hard.
Her dream began with just one sewing machine, a table, and very little cash. 12 years later, she uses the same sewing machine.
It's like a daughter.
The sewing machine has never given up on her, and neither have her customers.
Thank you.
They remain loyal.
Fina provides excellent, exceptional customer service, and that's why wherever she moves, I'm gonna follow.
There was a few times I came and I forgot my wallet. She said, you know what, take the stuff, pay me later. Not that much people do these things these days.
Not too far away is a popular Filipino restaurant, Goldilocks. The bakery chain based in the Philippines, started by two sisters in 1966, has a full Filipino menu, cakes, steam buns, and more. The store manager worked in the Philippines before immigrating here.
It's my dream since I was really young.
Now she's worked here for nearly 20 years, yet she says the food never gets old.
I love it. The crispy pata, boiled pork half, and then deep fried.
Another local restaurant started by Filipino immigrants, Manila Sunset. It first opened on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles. It's now been here in National City for 30 years.
We have celebrities come in here, and you won't even know they're here, you know?
Celebrities and families come for their Filipino cake, bibingka, and a summertime dessert, halo halo. The general manager works here with his daughter.
Sometimes we'll argue or whatever, but I like the fact that I can spend a lot more time with him here.
You'll learn the culture, you'll learn the difference, variety of food, pretty much a party every day for us.
This is Filipino restaurant, and it was my very first job here in America.
And she never left. She's worked here the past 12 years. 3 successful Filipino businesses that survived the pandemic through passion and hard work in a community that at one point felt underrepresented. According to a 2019 Pew Research study, San Diego has the 5th largest Filipino population, and it continues to grow.
Representation and showcasing like Filipino culture and other businesses, we can kind of share ourselves and share our culture more with the world.
I was able to survive because of dedication. I think I cannot live without sewing.
An important phrase in Tagalog is salamat po. Salamat means thank you, and po shows a sign of respect. So the next time you visit one of these Filipino businesses, make sure to say salamat po. I'm Ariana Cohen for CBS 8.
Salamat po to you, Ariana. Thanks so much. Still ahead, we'll take you to the largest and one of the oldest Chinese restaurants here in San Diego. You may have eaten there, but you probably don't know the story behind it. We share it next. We're celebrating Indian culture in San Diego, and CBS 8's Brian White will have that story in just a few minutes. But first, we highlight a success story in the Chinese American community, my community. There are more than 55,000 of us here, and many have made significant contributions to San Diego. I sat down with a longtime community leader who's sharing his culture while making a difference in people's lives.
You may be one of the thousands who celebrate Chinese New Year at Jasmine Seafood Restaurant, or enjoy delicious dim sum here with family and friends. But you may not know all of the ingredients of life mixed into the owner's recipe for success.
What do you hope customers experience when they come into your restaurant?
We want to give them experience like dining in a nice Cantonese Chinese restaurant without flying to Hong Kong.
Blessed with an abundance of food these days, Dr. Alan Chan recalls it wasn't always this way.
I was born in Shanghai.
He says the early years weren't so bad. Here he is in kindergarten. But soon, changes in farming policies along with droughts and floods led to a catastrophic shortage of food. He recalls standing in line every day to get his small share.
Life was getting hard because of the famine. The food supply had been rationed, and I still remember early in the morning, like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, we had to go to the market and get in line to get what we needed.
The Great Famine killed an estimated 30 million people. But when he was 11, he and his family managed to make their way out of mainland China and survive.
In December '59, we sort of smuggled into Hong Kong,
which was under British rule. About a decade later, he came to the U.S. to study engineering at Fresno State, but switched his major when he learned you could become a permanent resident if you worked in healthcare.
The only way for me to stay in the United States is to become a doctor or pharmacist or nurse.
He became a pharmacist, then a chiropractor, and settled down with his wife Janet in San Diego, where they raised 2 daughters. But he never gave up on this dream.
I supported myself through college working in Chinese restaurants, and always something in the back of my mind that someday maybe I'd like to own a Chinese restaurant.
Jasmine Seafood is now the largest and one of the oldest Chinese restaurants in San Diego, serving customers in Kearny Mesa since 1994.
And this is the soft pink dumpling.
We found this video in our archives, taken just weeks after it opened, nearly 30 years ago.
This is the Xuan siu mai.
This San Diego staple offers a true taste of tradition.
I love to do my part of sharing the Chinese culture.
Humbled by his successes, his life's mission is to give back.
How much have you donated into the community?
The last count was over 500,000 already, okay, with the help of the community, not just Jasmine, not just myself.
Dr. Chan is also the recipient of the prestigious Ellis Island Medal of Honor, awarded by Congress to immigrants who embraced opportunities to better their own lives and the lives of others.
Do you feel like you've fulfilled the American dream?
Yeah, in a way, I do, because I have so much help from different people all along the way.
And he's not done yet, with more ideas brewing to pay it forward.
I've been doing that for almost 30 years now, and we'll continue to do that to serve the community so that we can continue giving back to the community.
For many people in the Indian culture, the temple plays a central role in their community. Here at the Sri Mandir Temple in Mira Mesa, Hindu priest Sudarshan Bhatter stands before the altar praying to one of their many avatars.
In Sanskrit, it is saying you are the Almighty, we are humble, we are in front of you.
So total surrendering to the God and then accepting what He is giving through the water is like a blessing what we are getting into our life.
The Sri Mandir Temple has been in San Diego for 30 years, currently located in an area of Mira Mesa called Little India. Raj Agarwal is president of the temple's executive committee, and he says Hinduism is known for its flexibility.
No two people are alike. So it allows the flexibility to connect directly to God. So there is nobody in between you and God.
For many Indian Americans living in San Diego, this temple is a place for peace and calm.
Just get rid of everything, just stay calm and sit for a few minutes and you will come out with the calmness.
The peace and everyone is very welcoming and they do the puja very, very sincerely.
The temple sits in a plaza called Little India Center on Miramar Road, with Indian restaurants, clothing stores, and grocery stores all within close proximity. At the Chennai Tiffin's restaurant, Dave Mudai enjoys a delicious lunch with what's called a South Indian thali.
You know, all these lentils, and this is all like a suji. It's called a kind of a dessert.
When he wants to cook for himself, he shops at the nearby Akshar Cash and Carry for their wide selection of spices.
Like, cinnamon, and then cloves and cardamoms.
Akshar store manager Netin Petyal gave me a tour of their grocery store, pointing out all the many products that are imported straight from India.
This is all pickles. It gives you extra taste and extra jump in your food.
He says customers appreciate having a little slice of their home country here in San Diego.
When people see these all products, people get really excited. Like, yeah, see, this is the thing what I want from my home country.
At a nearby clothing store called Bombay Fashion, owner Sukrir Josin points out the many styles of clothing they carry. He says it's a reflection of how diverse India actually is.
On this wall, you see a dress called lehenga choli. These designs are very well embellished, and it's full of colors.
With over 30,000 Indian Americans living in San Diego, their population here is growing, as the beauty of their culture has become an integral part of the fabric of our city.
Everybody needs their own culture, and then they need to respect each other. I love that part.
Growing diversity, you know, that's the America, right? Well, melting pot.
In Mira Mesa, I'm Brian White for CBS 8.
Such a beautiful culture. Thanks, Brian. A bowl of pho on a cold day is one of life's simple pleasures, but there's a lot you may not know about Vietnamese culture and history. Incredible stories of survival coming up.
We're hearing stories of triumph, perseverance, and beating the odds. I'm Heather Hope in San Diego. Coming up, we hear from 3 former Vietnamese refugees tell their success stories.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us for CBS 8's AAPI special honoring Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. President George Herbert Walker Bush expanded the celebrations from a week to a month in May of 1990. I was invited to attend that ceremony in the White House Rose Garden as the youth ambassador for the Organization of Chinese Americans. I remember how special it felt as a teenager to have an entire month dedicated to honoring AAPI heritage. Now we introduce you to local community leaders with roots in Southeast Asia. 58,000 Vietnamese Americans call San Diego home, making up more than 13% of the AAPI population. Heather Hope shares some of their incredible stories of survival.
Overcoming incredible odds, we hear from 3 former Vietnamese refugees who wouldn't let poverty, a communist regime, or lack of education stop them from coming to San Diego and achieving the American dream.
For the boat people, refugee, we all share very similar stories.
These 3 Vietnamese American business leaders have found success in San Diego, but the long road to get there started in Vietnam, where they were all born in poverty amid political turmoil and were desperate to get out.
I witnessed the harbor police shot and killed my brother right in front of me.
After the Vietnam War, Jimmy Tai was just a teenager when he tried to escape 15 times.
But I'm determined, so I told Mom, if none of them want to go, give me a chance to keep going and keep trying.
Jimmy says the dream of going to college motivated him to continue to flee by boat.
You try to survive, the 20 years old rickety boat in the middle of the ocean. And that's why I went so many times. When I was there a couple of days, the boat just completely, the engine just stopped.
Stranded in the ocean with no GPS, Jimmy's boat was captured and all were sent to prison, where he also escaped and has the mugshot to prove it.
It's extremely daunting.
Jimmy's wife, Lily Tai, says her family fled their Vietnamese fishing village when she was 9 years old with just the clothes on their backs. Lily left her only sweater.
And it got caught on the bamboo, and I have to let it go because that's the only thing of my private possession. And at the same time, I heard gunshots look like bang, bang, bang.
Lily's family was chased by police until they made it aboard a boat to China.
I got seasick. I still have motion sickness to today, and I vomit, I eat, and everything in that hole for 2 weeks.
Mindy Fokel's father was a South Vietnamese officer until 1975 when communists detained him in a re-education camp prison for 7 years, leaving Mindy's family on their own.
I was growing up poor too, with my sister and my mom who worked every day to support us.
Mindy made it to America in 1991. Jimmy arrived in 1984, and Lily came in 1981 after surviving several months in a Hong Kong refugee camp filled with prostitution and gangs.
At a young age, I learned very quick and fast how to fight for my spot to cook for my family.
With sponsorship from an aunt in San Diego, Lily was grateful to reach dry land in the U.S.
When I landed here in San Diego, I was so mesmerized by how much concrete we have.
She held a pencil for the first time at Euclid Elementary School, learning English and how to read and write at 10 years old, to later graduating at the top of her Hoover High School class, to meeting her husband Jimmy as a volunteer teacher, to now working as a mortgage broker for 30 years. Mindy is now an award-winning real estate broker who says she worked hard to learn English when she was 18 years old in college, while also working as a retail manager and being a single mom of 2.
I'm very proud to be Vietnamese, and I'm proud to be American too.
Jimmy chronicled his journey from Vietnam to Thailand to San Diego in his book 5 Secrets to the American Dream, Stories of a Boat People Refugee. He went from being a janitor at Miramar College to the vice president of a Fortune 500 company who now builds schools in Vietnam and Cambodia.
To me, there's no better statement to describe America as the land of opportunities.
Heather Hope, CBS 8.
Such perseverance, and what great examples of leaders in our community. All right, San Diego is known for its surfing and taco shops, but it really offers so much more. There are many diverse cultures from around the world represented all around us. 35,000 Japanese Americans call San Diego home. Our Jasmine Ramirez introduces us to some who are fighting to keep their culture alive.
The bell here on Shelter Island is a symbol of San Diego's close ties to Japan. The city of Yokohama, Japan gave us the bell back in the 1950s as a symbol of us being sister cities. In that same decade, karate was brought from Japan straight to Southern California.
In Japan, you know, kids train karate all day long. You know, it's part of their school system, but for us, it's something, again, it's something really special for them to get to share with their friends.
Instructor Ellie Tao watches her students grow with each kick and flip.
Seeing not only aspects of having them learn self-defense, but seeing that character development is really important for us.
Which is exactly why Alani O'Rourke's mother wanted her girls to get involved with the sport.
My older daughter, she was very shy, and I want her to have a confidence.
Have you seen her gain quite a bit of confidence from doing karate?
Yes, yes.
She was born in Japan and says karate has helped teach her daughters about their heritage. They've learned a lot over the past few years.
My highest kata is Han Yandon.
U.S. karate wouldn't be where it is today without a man named Tsutomu Oshima. He learned from Master Funakoshi, known as the founder of modern-day karate. Sensei Oshima took what he learned in Tokyo and brought it to the United States.
Shotokan karate was started in Southern California in 1955 by Tsutomu Oshima, Oshima sensei.
Darren Pike was lucky enough to learn from Mr. Oshima.
And a lot of his students branched out and opened their own dojos throughout Southern California, and probably thousands of black belts practicing and teaching all over the world as a result of Oshima sensei.
He's one of those students. Darren is a 4th-degree black belt and has taught for more than 25 years. He holds Mr. Oshima's lessons near and dear to his heart.
Oshima sensei was also stressing the humanity of martial arts and trying to polish ourselves in being better people.
He hopes to convey this message to his students.
We start to realize that our opponent isn't on the outside, but it's on the inside. We're challenging ourselves and polishing ourselves to be better people through a hard practice.
Darren last saw Mr. Oshima at the Black Belt Convention just before the pandemic. Mr. Oshima leaves quite a legacy behind as the founder of Shotokan Karate of America. The organization now has dojos around the globe and is keeping the tradition of karate alive.
You can have these people from different backgrounds, cultures, religions, whatever, all coming together, friends, the camaraderie, and really just being together in sort of a harmony.
And Mr. Oshima finally retired at 88 years old. He still lives in California and will be 92 years old this year. I'm Jasmine Ramirez for CBS 8.
So amazing. Thanks, Jasmine. Next, we're heading to the islands of the Pacific, how the Hawaiian and Samoan cultures are influencing San Diego after the break. Stay with us. Now we're turning the spotlight to the Pacific Islands. As CBS 8's Regina An shows us, we can enjoy the Hawaiian culture without packing any bags. Then CBS 8's Regina Urita introduces us to some barrier-breaking Samoans right here in San Diego.
It's beautiful. I love to sing it, and it's nice when you have a beautiful voice to sing with you.
the sounds of the ukulele to lei making.
My feelings this morning to making the lei is joy, gratitude for the women that I'm here with today.
Each task done with good intentions and careful precision.
When it comes to the different flowers that you use in Hawaii, you're able to forage. You can go to the forest, you can go to different people's homes.
Elizabeth Ani, along with these women today, are part of the Hui O San Diego, a club that started in 1969 to keep the Hawaiian culture strong in San Diego.
Around 66, 67, a group of people that was coming out of Korean War, they were settling in San Diego.
Denise Yulani Dudoit Meyer, or Auntie Denise as everyone calls her, is the past president of the club. She's originally from Oahu.
I am second generation. There are now 4 generations of our family. My parents, with other Hawaiian people, opened up the Hui o Hawaii.
Audrey Spencer is now the president of the Hui Club.
Uplifting our people and our children. Ohana is what it's all about, and so we want to make sure that our children carry this legacy, this education.
It's the aloha spirit of love, peace, and compassion. Hawaiians say it's the ocean that connects the islands to San Diego, and with 100,000 Hawaiians living here, you could say it's one big ohana, or family.
Aloha! And of course, you can't talk about Hawaii without talking about the amazing food. Terry Villanueva opened Island Sal Cafe in 2008. Originally from Kona, she wanted to not only bring authentic Hawaiian-like Kalua pork and poke to San Diego, but also a bit of home.
This is like comfort food for island people.
But you'll notice many of the foods rich and heavy. That's for a good reason.
Most of the time you only have one meal, for working. So you have that one meal, you make sure it's filling, it takes you through the day.
Being able to share the traditional music, the love that we have for Hawaiian music, for our Hawaiian culture is amazing.
Anthony Stanley and Kihi Rosette both have played the ukulele since they were young.
But in Hawaii, this is our instrument. It's always been.
They say the ukulele can emit both happy and sad emotions. An instrument that's been in Hawaii since the 1800s. With the addition of the hula dancing, its purpose to pass down life lessons and reenact stories, altogether creating and fostering a spirit of aloha between the people of Hawaii right here in San Diego. Regina on CBS 8.
Benson Mwaga, a Samoan pastor and former football player, has been mentoring high school football teams in Oceanside for years. He's speaking in Samoan to other Samoan families and says he is thankful for this life.
You always can be someone else, but why not be yourself for a start?
Before he moved to San Diego, he was living in a village called Nu'uuli in Samoa, a village surrounded by banana trees and taro plants that are all used to cook Samoan dishes.
The culture of Samoa, it starts up with a small circle of a family. We grew up in a small, they call house, but we call it faleo. And it's so small.
He has motivated his family and high school students to embrace their culture, but that has not always been the case. Benson says before, many of the younger generations were forgetting the language and traditions, while others believed they were not good enough to hold a prestigious position in their life. That's why Mwaga started to mentor high school students to help them get on the path to success.
I planted seeds for the Samoan Polynesian athletes. And as a founder, I try to establish, to let them know there is a full figure besides Junior.
Here I am
here in the community of San Diego.
But it wasn't until the late, great Junior Seau of the San Diego Chargers broke barriers and showed off his Samoan warrior culture under the bright lights of the NFL.
Every kid wants to be number 55. Why? Because they represent what kind of heart it was and who he is that he represents. Not into our family, for the community.
In San Diego, younger Samoan generations began to see opportunities. Even now, many continue to remember what Sao represented on the gridiron, bringing that same type of energy on the field, but this time from high school students playing football today.
He was just a great role model for all of us to look up to, and the way he played the game so passionately, and the way he gave back to his community.
Like Jackson, who's a student at Cathedral Catholic High School and is a CIF champion. He's earned a full ride to Stanford and will be playing for the Stanford Cardinal as a defensive end next year. In the coming weeks, he will be honored as the most inspirational athlete in the area and will be awarded a trophy with the etching of the late linebacker.
You know, when I go on the field, I'm there to win. I'm there to, you know, support my teammates, and just I use my family as a motivation.
Proving that Samoans across the nation can accomplish what they want while still staying true to their culture. Regina Urita, CBS 8.
So impressive. Thanks, Regina. Up next, we head to the Western Pacific with CBS 8's Steve Price. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, our Steve Price introduces us to San Diegans with roots in Guam, a U.S. territory for more than 100 years.
These are traditions 4,000 years in the making. Chamorros are the indigenous people of the Mariana Islands, with the majority of them living on Guam.
And it's a beautiful culture, it's a beautiful language, and it's a beautiful way of living.
Danny Bloss grew up on Guam, but then his family moved to Illinois.
Coming to Illinois, I did not see, the only people I knew that were Chamorro were my brothers and sisters and my mom and dad and my cousins that would come to visit. And so I kind of lost my way.
It's a common story with Chamorros. Through colonization and moves, the traditions started getting lost. But when Danny moved to San Diego for a job in 2002, he realized Southern California had the largest Chamorro population away from Guam, including nearly 20,000 in our county.
I landed in the right place to learn more about my culture.
And while traditions started to fade, there was one thing Chamorro people never lost.
The most friendly, most welcoming people that you will ever meet.
Which brings us back to the dancing we showed you earlier. Danny helped organize the annual Chamorro Cultural Festival, which welcomes thousands of visitors with open arms and, more importantly, encourages kids to learn about their culture.
Through dance and through the arts, through the performing arts, that's one great way to get our youth back into and embracing their culture and their language. And so that's what we've been doing, is promoting those opportunities for our youth.
It's also making sure traditions don't die. And it's working.
Here in San Diego, what I am sensing and what I'm feeling and what I'm seeing is kind of like these educational programs that Chamorros have been putting together are instilling pride in Chamorros and Guamanians throughout this area.
That pride has grown-ups longing for foods from their childhood, so things are really heating up for restaurants serving traditional Chamorro food.
You get the red rice with the achote seasoning, garlic, fresh onion.
Ray Rodriguez, the owner of JJ's Island Grinds in Bonita, is from Guam, and on the menu,
this is our chicken calaguan,
are popular items from home. Chamorro restaurants saw a big rise around the county before the pandemic forced a few of them to close. Food, a friendly reminder of great days on the island.
Cooking, barbecuing, everybody kicking back around the barbecue.
Danny set us up with Ray because food is so important in Chamorro tradition, bringing family together.
My mouth is watering now, Steve, and so every time I think about our cultural food, I just think great things.
But Danny doesn't have a lot of time for thinking about food because he's already helping to plan the next Chamorro Cultural Festival in March of 2023, and he hopes you'll come out to learn about the rich history of his people. Steve Price, CBS 8.
The country of Iran is on the Asian continent, but no one here would ever say we're Asian. So what are we? We came to the Iranian School of San Diego to talk about this further. That story coming up next.
Now we take a closer look at who is considered Asian American. West Asia includes Iran, Iraq, and Israel, among other countries. But as CBS 8's Neda Iranpour explains, there's much debate over the geographical label.
The country of Iran is on the Asian continent, but no one here would ever say we're Asian. I've never said that. Both my parents are from Iran. So what are we? We came to the Iranian School of San Diego to look into this.
Language keeps people connected. By learning to read, write, and speak Farsi, many of these kids can stay in touch with their relatives in Iran.
It's like a great language.
Also being together at the Iranian School of San Diego gives them a sense of community.
The fun part is the recess.
As these kids test their reading skills,
Kitab, what does that mean?
Book.
Good job.
They test mine too.
Danish Amuz. Danish Amuz. So a student, right?
All of these students, or as we'd say in Farsi, Danesh Amuz Ha, spend several hours every Sunday morning at Mount Carmel High. About 200 students ages 5 and up.
Has anyone been to Iran? You've been to Iran?
Nikon tells me he's been to Iran 11 times.
I've never been, so tell me.
You haven't? Their food is really good.
These kids were beaming with pride, talking about a country thousands of miles away that they really connect with.
It's a great country. It's really fun. There's a lot of culture. There's a lot of art.
What do you love about it?
Which then leads me to the question, what do they say when people ask, where are you from?
I tell people I'm from Iran. Some people don't necessarily know where Iran is or don't understand what Iran is.
Even though Iran is on the Asian continent, no one says they're Asian. But if they must be labeled by region, there's been a push to be considered Southwest Asian or North African. Some would say those would be more geographically correct, modern descriptions compared to being called Middle Eastern.
This is derogatory and also is colonial, because it's east of what, west of what, middle east of where, you know.
The principal here, Ali Saad, is also the founder of Paik magazine, researching and writing about Iranians in America. During the Iranian Revolution, many families left their home in the late 1970s, including mine. And that's when on forms like the census, the government would recognize people from Iran and other surrounding countries as white.
If I go somewhere and say I'm white, they're going to laugh at me. Like if I go and say I'm tall, they're going to laugh at me. Probably I'm tall in Iran, but here I'm not considered tall.
We were all lumped into the so-called white majority. But if you ask anyone from that region, most will say they didn't feel like part of the majority.
So we started convincing people to say other and that Iranian American.
But as Saad points out, by marking other on the census, we still won't really know how many Iranians or others from that region are here in America. But the ones who are here are working hard to assimilate while also cherishing their culture.
Thanks, Netta. The debate, I'm sure, will continue. Next, the culture of color brought to San Diego by Hmong Americans. Stay with us. Welcome back. For our final story, CBS 8's Richard Allen spent time with members of our Hmong American community who are working to preserve and share their culture while living the American dream.
San Diegan Pa Yang is ready to celebrate.
I miss seeing the Hmong community come together.
A vibrant community here in San Diego County, largely kept apart for the past 2 years by the pandemic. A community that many San Diegans know little about.
Historically, we've come a long way.
A history that stretches back thousands of years. Members of an ethnic group without a country of their own, the Hmong migrated from China to Laos, Thailand, and nearby countries more than 3 centuries ago.
We were considered, the poor people of Asia. We lived in the mountains, we lived in huts.
And following the Vietnam War, in which the Hmong helped U.S. forces fight the communists, tens of thousands were forced to flee, first to refugee camps and then to the United States. It was during the late 1970s and early 80s that about 5,000 Hmong made their way from Southeast Asia here to San Diego to start a new life. Among them was Ia Vu, one of only 6 in her family to survive the war. Ia settled in Linda Vista in 1980, where she raised her family, helping support them through her unique talents in this elaborate form of cross-stitching.
This one, Laos. We call it ban dao.
Creating elaborate story cloths, capturing through images not only her people's history, but her own personal journey fleeing to safety. Her experience far different from members of the Hmong community born and raised here in San Diego, like her son, Richard.
Growing up, it was a little bit difficult for me. Like it was a clash of culture.
Richard is also committed to keeping the Hmong culture alive. For the past 20 years, he has served his community as a shaman, a spiritual healer who performs traditional rituals and ceremonies, including weddings and funerals. A crucial part of those ceremonies is the traditional Hmong clothing on full display during Hmong New Year celebrations.
We used to be more bland, more plain, and now we're more colorful.
Also critical to keeping the culture alive is maintaining the Hmong language, a tonal language that historically was not written down. Pa Yang is now working to teach it to her kids. Over the decades, though, San Diego's Hmong population has dwindled in numbers, many moving out of the area in search of more affordable housing. And in North County, one Hmong family is working to bring those cultures together.
This will be the gathering area. We'll have a big communal table here.
Yang Lor and her husband, Dua Chang, recently moved to this 8-acre property in the hills of San Marcos.
I think that gives us that feeling of going home, going back to the mountains.
They're now working to transform their 5-bedroom Spanish colonial into a bed and breakfast, showcasing their Hmong culture to all guests, no matter what their background, including cultural workshops from music to crafts, as well as typical Hmong dishes to serve their guests.
If you've ever been to a Hmong house, you know that you cannot leave until you eat.
Nestled next to a vineyard,
we're still doing a lot of work.
This unique B&B will also feature Hmong gardens, as well as a traditional and educational Hmong house to teach guests about the history of their people.
It's very humbling, actually. It's just something that we can also be very proud of, because I feel like we have come so far.
A story that continues into the future.
I'm just really proud of who we've become and where we've come from, and so it's exciting to see where our next generation of kids will go.
Richard Allen, CBS 8.
Thank you, Richard. And here's a closer look at these beautiful hand-stitched pillows. This one tells their survival story, running from the military, and then here using bamboo under their arms to help them float down the river as they escaped, and then finally building a new life here in America, like so many immigrants. Thank you so much for joining us for CBS 8's AAPI special. Visit CBS8.com to watch the full stories we shared with you this hour. We hope you've learned a little more about what makes San Diego so great and the colorful cultures and people that make us America's finest city.